Welcome to Health and Harmony Beyond the Teeth, where we dive into all subjects that will help you become healthier and happier. As a dentist, I believe dentistry is more than just teeth, so I created this show to focus on overall health. We will hear from leading experts about eating better, exercising better, breathing better, and sleeping better. We want to help you create harmony in your life so you can live your life to the fullest. We want you to thrive. Hello, welcome to Health and Harmony Beyond the Teeth. I'm Dr. Hal Stewart, your host. It's a cold, rainy day here in Texas in the fall, but we've had a hot summer, so I'm welcoming this weather as many are. But this cold weather and damp weather can bring out joint pains in people, especially older people, which is a good lead into our topic today, because this is a topic we haven't talked about yet, and that's flexibility and mobility. You know, we've talked about nutrition, about strength training, about cardio training, aerobic training for our bodies, and all of that is so very important. And that also fits into mobility. But one thing that we really haven't discussed much on this, or at all on my podcast, is flexibility and mobility. And it kind of hits home to me because after having 4 shoulder surgeries, I felt like I really couldn't do much with my shoulders. And I started working with a trainer, and she helped me gain the mobility and the flexibility back in my shoulders. And now we're working on flexibility more in my hips and legs. And that trainer just happens to be with us today. Kay Sims, she's a partner and certified trainer at Outlaw Fitcamp by Jesse James. Kay, welcome. We're glad to have you today. And Kay has been my personal trainer for the past 8 years. She helped me train to compete in my first bodybuilding contest. So we've gotten to know each other really well, and I trust her expertise and her knowledge so much. So today is the first in a 3-part series about mobility and flexibility. So today we're going to talk about, what is mobility, why it's important. In episode 2, we'll talk about how we lose mobility in different body parts. And then in episode 3, how we can improve. What can we do about it? Even if you're 5 years old, or if you're 75 years old or 85 years old, there's always a way to be proactive. So with no further ado, we'll get going. And Kay, tell us a little bit about where you work and about that fine organization.
So Outlaw Fitcamp by Jesse James is a private training studio, a boutique studio located in Flower Mound, Texas here. And we do 30-minute workout sessions with personal training, small groups, and we also have fit camp classes, they're basically like large group training. They're smaller group classes than what you'll see in most gyms and training facilities. So, and our focus is 30-minute sessions. We do high intensity and functional interval training to make sure that our clients are going to get what they need, but be efficient with their time and get the best results within that time. So we do a lot of full body movements that just allow you to really work through the whole body, and we call it functional interval training, because it's functional, things that are going to apply into everyday life through better strength and mobility with what we do. And our company that we have taken that concept with, we've grown it into Outlaw Fitcamp franchise company, and we have 6 locations here in Texas, and we're opening up our next one in Indiana, South Carolina, coming up in the next few weeks.
That's great. I've actually had Jesse on here, and several of the trainers and nutritionists over the years on my podcasts, and you guys are always full of such great information. And I can tell you this, in a 30-minute session with Kay, we get so much done. It is so efficient with the time. I remember at another large chain of fitness centers that I used to go to, and I had a personal trainer there, and we had a 1-hour session, but a lot of it was spent just kind of resting between sets and talking, and although we do a lot of talking and we talk about a lot of personal stuff, man, she never lets me stop. My nickname for Kay is the Little General, so and it's well earned. So Kay, thank you again for being on today. I want to, because I think this is so vital, that as I've gotten older, I'm 61 years old now. As I've gotten older, I just noticed that, things like, putting on my shoes and tying my shoes, it's just not as easy as it used to be when I was, 20 years old. And that's because I've lost mobility in my hips. I think my upper body mobility is not too bad because we do a lot of movements here, but that's one thing that we're working on right now. So first of all, let's define mobility. What when we're talking about human anatomy and physiology, what is mobility?
Well, having mobility is basically the ability to move as our body's intended and be able to move through that full range of motion and do it safely without hurting yourself and doing it well. So it's not uncomfortable, it shouldn't be without any pain. And that's something that is really important for our everyday function to make sure that we stay safe and healthy as we're doing the things that we need to do and want to do every day.
And it's possible. I mean, we've all seen videos or news articles about elderly patients or elderly people that are doing yoga and things like that. But it starts in infancy at birth. As an infant, there can be some mobile restrictions in infants as well. I've interviewed Dr. Matt Barker on this podcast, and some part of his training is dealing with mobility in infants. So it's important in infancy and early in life. Why early in life, as an infant and as a toddler, why is mobility important?
Well, that's where they're establishing their neuromotor patterns, their neuromuscular communication, and as their bodies are growing and gaining muscle and bone, and if they're not moving the body properly, then they're already looking at having injuries and issues as they're younger. And we were given, God designed us to have the ability to do all these movement patterns. When you look at farmers out in the fields for centuries and all those physically active things that were required throughout the centuries, they were always able to do those movements. If you take that take someone 100 years ago, that's 45-year-old male, for example, take what they were able to do and take the average 45-year-old male that's at a desk job today, and their abilities are lost. And we established the movements that we have as babies. That's actually when they're getting back into looking at mobility with adults. We look at the movement patterns of infants and babies as they're learning to walk and crawl, and the ability to touch their toes and bring their foot up high and just twist around. And what happens? Why do we lose that? We lose it because we quit moving. Yeah. And there's a big movement with that, as I said, and also adult playgrounds. So we're moving in different directions because we've quit doing that.
If you lose it, if you don't use it, you lose it, basically. Exactly. We all are familiar with that term. So that brings up my next question. So, what happens as we get older that we lose mobility? We get distracted, we get into different careers and things like that. Why don't we keep moving?
Yeah, I think there's two things with it. Number one, it's lifestyle, obviously. Even if you were an athlete growing up, then you go out, you graduate, whether it's high school or college athletics, and then now you're sitting in a desk all day long versus doing all those movement patterns that you were doing while you were playing a sport or while you were playing out in your backyard as you were a kid. And then we quit doing those things, and instead we're sitting. We're such a sedentary society that we're not moving. A lot of the conveniences in our modern world take away any activity that we need to do. In this area, how many people aren't even mowing their lawns or working out in the yard? Yeah. And we're just doing a lot of sitting, a lot of driving, a lot of technology. And so it's a downward spiral. So once you get stiff, it's not as comfortable to move. So you don't move as much. And the less you move, the more it goes downhill. Also, I think from a lot of people who had injuries, such as yours, from sports or maybe a playground injury or anything when we're kids. And once you have that injury, you're afraid to use it. Well, when you're afraid to use it, when you go to move a certain direction that requires that limb or wherever your injury is to be utilized, you can't. So then you're going to compensate and move awkwardly. Then it's going to be painful, and then you're also setting yourself up for another possible injury because of that compensation. It's just really important that that we don't lose that. And unfortunately, that we quit. It's important that we don't quit moving once we hit adulthood. But I think that transition from child to adult is the biggest thing. Unfortunately, in our society today, now in this generation, it's getting that way with children. They learn to walk and crawl, and 5, 6, 7, 8. Now they're sitting in front of a screen, whether it's video games, technology, and so we're going to start seeing more issues in the next generation.
I was going to ask you, do you as a trainer now? I know you train some younger people, certainly younger than I. Do you train any teenagers, or have you seen come in the gym? And if so, are you seeing a reduction in flexibility in those teenagers?
Absolutely. The biggest things I see are tight hip flexors, a lot of rolled forward shoulders, so posture
Being
issues.
On the computer and the iPhones and the iPads,
And that posture, that's a whole subject in itself. When you can't have that proper posture, then when you go to do a movement, you're going to do it improperly, putting undue stress on your low back, on your knees, and then that just sets up for a whole nother discussion of issues.
Yeah. Well, I know that you talk about compensation. Can you give me an example of a compensatory movement or a compensation that the folks out in the audience could identify with? Because we're all guilty, so to speak, of doing that to some extent.
A big one is with the upper body is the shoulder mobility, because a lot of people are rolled forward because they're constantly reaching forward. That's going to make their chest muscles tight, and then their back muscles are overstretched and they're out of alignment. So a lot of these compensations that we see, it's putting you out of alignment. So then when you go to move, you're not moving properly. So when you're in this position, now when you go to reach for a glass out of your cabinet, or even putting a shirt on, or getting dressed in the morning, just anything that involves overhead, in order to do that, you're not able to do that properly. So you're going to shift your body, then that's going to put your back out of alignment. Then when you go to reach, you're at higher risk for a back injury. How many people say they sit up out of bed and their back went out?
Yeah.
Well, there was something that they've been doing for a really long time before their back went out.
Right.
That was just something that morning, the straw that broke the camel's back. But
literally,
yeah. But there's some movement patterns that they've been doing for a long time that worked its way up to having a breaking point.
Yeah. Well, I think probably the vast majority of people out there can relate to this, and I think of people like we're talking about sitting at a desk and in front of a computer all day, but I also know how much of just the natural aging process. Because I don't like my brother. My brother's a carpenter, so he's out moving every day. He's been doing that for 30 years plus, and I'll say this: he's had some injuries that he hasn't gotten fixed. My dad was the same way. My dad was this big bull of a man, but duct tape was his answer to everything. He'd crack some ribs, he would wrap duct tape. So in adults that have been in the same profession where they do move a lot, but they're getting, the joints are getting frozen, is that usually due to past injuries that they've just ignored?
That, and somewhat of maybe some overuse injuries, because they have ended up doing, even if they're doing a lot of different movement patterns, it was just, there's wear and tear on the joints. Yeah, I mean, there is a natural progression there. There are a lot of factors that play into that, such as how their nutrition throughout the years, where they were eating higher processed foods, there's a lot of inflammation in their body, versus someone that maybe living on a farm, eating straight off the, good, clean, organic, lean proteins, vegetables. Right. Those are going to play into that as well.
A lot of other factors.
So, but I think definitely our bodies will at some point break down, but there's a lot of factors that play into it. How well they took care of their body, addressed any, if they gave their body rest when they did have an injury versus not. And
being smart about it.
Yeah.
Unlike my wife and I bought a huge pumpkin. I told you about this for our grandson's first birthday party. It was just last weekend. This pumpkin probably weighs 80 to 100 pounds, and it's big. And so it was easier for me just to pick it up, put it in the back of the truck, and then when we got home, take it out, put it in the yard, and then a week later for his birthday, pick it up, take it back to the truck, over to my sister's house where the birthday party was, pick it up, carry it to the backyard. That wasn't good enough. They wanted it in another place, so I moved it here. All that to say, it would have been better for me to wait till someone else could have helped me. But, being bullheaded and, still having the strength to do that, I did it on my own. And things like that, just being smart as you get older and not doing things like that.
Exactly, yeah.
Because this pumpkin, they don't grow handles on the pumpkin. So it was just real awkward. Well, we're going to get into, in episode 2 and 3 with Kay, we're going to get into how we lose mobility in different parts of the body where we lose mobility. And then in episode 3, we're going to talk about what we can do about it and the solutions. So I want you all to stay tuned. Next week will be episode 2 and where we lose mobility as adults. We're going to talk about the different major body parts where we lose mobility and why. So Kay, thank you so much. It's been very informative and I can't wait for the next 2 episodes.
Thank you for having me.
All right. This has been Health and Harmony Beyond the Teeth. I'm Dr. Hal Stewart. Have a great day and smile at someone. Might be the only person that smiles them that day, and you may just make their day. So have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.